So today I'm shooting portraits on the brand new Lumix S5 Mark II. I wanted to do this because I think we all know by now that the Lumix is an amazing video camera, but nobody really seems to talk about the photo side for some reason. So I thought I'd shoot some portraits and give my experience using the camera on the photo side. So I brought two lenses with me today, one being the Sigma 24mm 1.4 art lens, as well as the Lumix 35mm 1.8 prime lens. We're going to be shooting at various city locations today. I'm going to be throwing in a little bit of footage from the camera at each location too. So let's get started. So I haven't used this camera much, so I'm not going to be super quick with it.
That's fine.
First up, at this colourful graffitied wall with Xenia, I knew I wanted to use the Sigma 24mm lens to show off the environment a little bit, and I've got to say I love this lens. Yeah, that's good. This is the angle I think that looks cool. When shooting portraits on a wider angle lens like this 24mm, I like shooting in landscape orientation at this kind of a crop to capture the background and avoid distortion. I'm just really loving the colours and sharpness out of the camera immediately. But here's where I encountered my first issue with autofocus though. When shooting Xenia in sunglasses, the camera just couldn't find the face at all, never mind the eye, and I had to keep overriding the AF by tapping to focus. That's cool.
Yeah, I love that.
It really struggled to focus on you with the sunglasses though.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's not
something
your fault.
to put into
That's the camera's fault, yeah. So actually it may have been my fault. There were also some other times with the camera when it just refused to find the face or eye, even when it was clear in the frame. Cool. This turned out to be mostly an issue with settings though, so stick around to the second half of the video where I do figure this out in the settings. Maybe if you come a little closer, you might be able to get more sort of...
Is that too close?
No, that's fine. Such a wide lens that you're a lot closer than you think. 3, 2, 1.
I'll wash the trousers off.
Sure. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's really cool. Now here I switched over to the Lumix 35mm 1.8 lens for these shots, and I noticed immediately the camera focused quicker and more confidently with this Lumix lens. Yeah, these are cool. Maybe one more step this way, but yeah. Now this is a really nice combo to shoot with. The Lumix has a really comfortable grip, and this small lens is an absolute joy to use. Perfect, that's really cool. This lens is lightweight, razor sharp and relatively cheap too. I love these little Lumix lenses. I've used the 50mm and 24mm of these S-series primes and they are all excellent. I do think it feels like you get the best out of the S5 Mark II with Lumix lenses when it comes to straight out of camera colour and of course autofocus performance in both photo and video. Lean forward like this, maybe try that. I would like to see Lumix release a few more 1.4 primes for example though, as at the moment they only seem to have a 50mm 1.4 prime. In general, when it came to editing and colouring, I found these really Lumix files really easy to work with. I've always been a fan of Lumix colours, back when the S1 was my main camera, and they still don't disappoint. Very little editing needed to get great results. But again, even when using the Lumix lens, in a situation like this where I really wanted to be able to rely on the face and eye autofocus when going up this escalator, I had to override it and tap to focus. Cool. Ultimately, I didn't get more than one keeper on this escalator because of this issue. So I rounded out day one in the studio to see what the camera performs like in a more controlled environment. I was using a few different camera systems this day, so I just shot with constant light for the sake of convenience. I stopped the Lumix 35mm lens down to 2.8 and wow, this camera produces some ultra sharp images. Colours, micro contrast, all excellent with this combo, and the AF was flawless in this kind of studio environment. So we may as well take a closer look at sharpness here. And just look at these close-up results. Tons of detail and micro contrast, and don't forget that this is just a 24 megapixel sensor. Perhaps it's the lack of anti-aliasing filter that's giving these kinds of results, but wow, Lumix did a great job with this sensor, and I can't seem to see any drop in performance when switching over to this new phase detect autofocus system. Okay, so let's discuss the earlier autofocus problems. I did some reading up and it turns out it's pretty important which AF subject you choose in this menu. I had it set to face and eye, when apparently you'll get better results in human. So I changed this up and set out again the next day to see if this ironed out the earlier issues. And it did. The IAF was much more reliable and sticky with this change in settings. It didn't matter how small the face was in the frame, the camera just handled the focusing and left me to concentrate on composing the shot. AF performance was more in line here with Canon or Sony, for example. Sure, now and again, like you can see here on the camera screen, it would lose IAF and just put a square around the whole body, but the images still came out sharp and usually would catch back on to the face after a few seconds.
I like that. Move your arms by the side and just look at me, then look, yeah, cool, then each way, yeah, perfect.
In general, I know Lumix are pretty great with firmware updates, so I imagine these little issues will get ironed out in the future. So I hope you enjoyed this short video. If so, please think about liking and subscribing because it really does help the channel. So closing thoughts on the Lumix S5 Mark II, and well, what a camera. Sharpness, colours, dynamic range, all excellent. So after I figured out that issue with autofocus in the settings, I genuinely cannot pick fault with any aspect of this camera on the photo side. Between those little Lumix S primes and the Sigma Art primes, you have some amazing lens options for this camera. But I would like to see Lumix release a few more 1.4 prime lenses, as it has been a while since they released that 50mm. As I said earlier, with the release of the S5 Mark II, people are now taking a serious look at Lumix as a contender for a new system to switch over to for video. But I want to hear from people that use Lumix as their main photo camera. If that's you, please let me know down in the comments which Lumix camera you use and what you shoot. I will be releasing a full review of the Lumix S5 Mark II in the coming weeks, covering both photo and video. So if you have any questions that you want me to cover in that video, please leave them down below and I'll do my best to help. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.